Is it possible to get a software development job after a short training course, say 2 months, 3 months, or something like that? Now, it's a pretty common question. In my local area, I can probably label at least 20 or 30 companies organizing paid training courses for software engineers. And I won't be surprised if there are more than, say, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 academies and training centers specializing on training programming. And this doesn't really include universities and kind of high schools and others that specialize in informatics. I'm only talking about private training centers focusing on kind of computer science or different programming languages, technical stacks, and things like that. So we also get tons of different applications from people who have graduated from a specific course. And that's pretty much it. They don't have any other types of experience. They're looking for their first entry level training junior job and so on. So we do have different outcomes for some of those people. Some are successfully starting with us, but most aren't really starting with us simply because they lack the basics, even after passing this course. So again, today's topic is, can you find a job as a software engineer after passing kind of short training course on programming or software engineering? And again, I also know parents who have kind of kids at high school who are interested in starting jobs, like kids who are almost graduating from high school or something like that. And they're trying to enroll their kids into a promising training program that can kind of facilitate their career and help them move forward. Something that kind of makes sense from a pragmatic standpoint, especially if those kids are interested in computers, computer science, not just playing PlayStation games, right? So in my opinion, there are four specific arguments that you need to consider before thinking of that specific training program or a training bootcamp or whatever it is for teaching software engineering. Now, the first one is the intensity and the depth of that training program. Now, the intensity is, of course, the regularity of the program itself. You're talking about, let's take an example, an 8-week bootcamp or a training course. Now, there are different possible combinations that you can prepare the program at. One option is just twice a week for 3 or 4 hours, and that's pretty much it. Another option is pretty much a full-time training bootcamp. We're talking about 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, or even something more intense, like 8 days a week plus homeworks, which is kind of the next level type of intensity. Now, this intensity is important because, of course, the more intensive the program is, the higher the chance you're going to cover different topics within the field of software engineering. And you're going to solve more problems, you're going to learn more syntax and types of common solutions to problems such as design patterns or anything along those lines. So that's why intensity is important, because within just a couple days a week for 3 or 4 hours, there isn't really a lot you can cover in order to start a job. And depth is kind of the second argument, because intensity and depth are kind of going together as a whole. Because even if the course is intensive, if it kind of teaches just the very basics, kind of the core foundation of software engineering, or on the other end, just the basics of syntax of a programming language, that doesn't really help you a lot. So depth should also be considered. And by depth, I mean kind of could be structured in different ways, really, depending on what the program is, but could be foundations of computer science and operating systems and networks, algorithms, data structures, things like this, which also take a lot of time, but they're foundational and they are actually required for landing a job. Or at least if you kind of have a programming language, not just studying the syntax, which is really the simplest things and it doesn't bring a lot of value. So instead of just building the syntax, being able to build a complex, somewhat complex application from scratch. If we are talking about web development with PHP, with Python, with Ruby, Java, .NET, something like that, just being able to build a database layer in a smart manner, use some form of active record or object relational mapping while still understanding SQL, then building kind of a foundational framework that maps to the web application, building the user interface, the login with sessions, things like that. So basically being able to solve actual problems, because most of the training programs that I've seen are pretty basic. They only teach the syntax, and basically when someone comes at an interview, they don't know how to solve business problems. They can't map a specific business problem into a technical solution. They can't pick the right algorithms. They don't know how you can get a business problem, break it down into different pieces, into different components, map them as specific libraries, and just connect all the pieces together. They have no idea because they only know the syntax and they can't really grasp the idea that syntax itself doesn't mean anything. It's almost like knowing the alphabet. Like I can probably teach myself to read Arabic or Mandarin or something, but it doesn't mean I can actually form words and then form sentences and then be able to comprehend other people speaking them, simply because I really know the basics. I don't know the utilization of the language in practice. So that's kind of the first point. Again, it's the intensity and the depth of the training. That's number one, because it kind of showcases what's the program all about. Now, I haven't included the speaker and their credentials and their training abilities because it's hard to gauge most of the time. But of course, this is another part of the puzzle. Second thing is the former background of the actual applicant. Now, if you get someone who's been in, I don't know, like probably, and again, without meaning to sound insulting, like washing dishes or construction worker, or someone who was completely detached from IT, completely unaware of how computers work and like barely being able to use the internet, now teaching themselves programming in a short amount of time is nearly impossible. But if you take a student who has at least studied informatics, tried to understand kind of different parameters of the hardware, RAM, CPU, input, output operations, video cards, other bits, trying to figure out how operating systems work, then there's much better chance to actually be able to utilize and quickly study the curriculum simply because they have the necessary background. So that's, again, also super important, and you need to consider it. People with better preparation are probably going to be enrolled in that course, and they will simply stand better chance because they have former background. Number three is market demands. By market demands, I mean how likely it is that the market needs the skills taught during this training, right? So if you enroll in a course for, say, Django development, but everyone in your industry is using Java or .NET, and Django is in Python, and it's a completely different framework and it's solving different problems, then you won't have that many opportunities to start a job. But if you have, I don't know, 50 large corporate multinational companies hiring 100 developers a year each, and then like they have entry-level programs for Java developers, and you enroll in a Java course, then you have a better chance simply because the market demands are such that they can possibly utilize your skills. They're looking for plenty of people. There aren't that many people in the market, so they're willing to make some exceptions or take entry-level folks and kind of onboard them onto another training program for probably another month or two in order to shape you into a decent entry-level developer. So again, market demands are important. Understand what the market needs, understand what sort of skills are needed for landing entry-level jobs in your area, and it's pretty much a statistical problem onward. And of course, if you have some form of a network of people you can talk to, it helps as well. And the fourth thing, which is pretty crucial for a specific training center or academy, is strategic partnership. Now, you know that some universities in the States, they do have kind of alliances with Google or Microsoft or other kind of firms, or like Harvard, kind of interacts with other law firms simply because it's a reputable institution and it prepares people for the top firms in the industry, right? So with that in mind, some of those training centers may have contacts, may have partnerships, kind of, again, strategic alliances with certain companies looking to hire people from that institution. And it's a pretty great business model. I've worked with 3 companies working in a similar manner. So they kind of teach people even for free or at a low cost, and then they more or less sell them to companies as an outsourced training agency for the specific company. So this is usually pretty great because you have an open connection to companies looking for people and companies who have already approved that specific training program. So yeah, to sum it up, you have the intensity of the training, you have the former background, the market demands, and also potential strategic partnerships. Research all of those, and if that makes sense, if you have the background, if there's market demand for that, and if you're really passionate to study, then yes, this probably makes sense, and you probably stand a chance to land a job. Otherwise, consider different kind of long-term opportunities and initial preparation in order to get there first before enrolling in a similar course.